Hi guys, welcome back. So I've got a little experiment I want to do today. I'm hoping to further optimise the XTI50 for some of the longer range shooting that I've been doing. Now I've got the Arken EP5 on here, which is a monster scope, primarily the sort of thing you'd see on long range centerfire rifles, long range pushing the limits with 22LR, but of course I've got it on the XTI now and I've been doing pretty well with it actually. I'm gelling with it very well. I'm hoping by fitting a 20 MOA scope mount to this now and replacing the tier 1 parallel mounts that I can increase my adjustment range for dialing out to even further ranges. Now if you've seen the other video, I'll put a link in the description, the first one that I did with this. Very happy, and I can actually dial now past 100 yards, in fact out to about 110 meters just on the top turret, so I can shoot off of my crosshairs. But what we're going to do today, by fitting a 20 MOA rail, which we're also going to talk about, I'm going to show you what a 20 MOA rail actually entails and what I'm hoping it's going to do. And hopefully once we get this all fitted up, it'll all fit nicely. It's going to be pretty close in here. I've had to do quite a bit of measuring. The eye relief that I've got on the scope at the moment, it looks like it's just going to fit. I've also got some eaglevision picatinny adapters here, so these are dovetail to picatinny adapters. Hopefully I won't get too ranty about the state of all the dovetails and dovetail mounts, because they really are starting to get on my wick trying to find decent quality dovetail mounts now, especially in 34mm scopes with something of MOA or adjustable. Yeah, pain in the backside. So I'm going to get this all apart. I'll show you what we've got here. And just for any avoidance of any doubt at all, I actually bought these direct from Arken. So yes, they gave me the scope. We've talked about that in the videos. Very happy with that. So I thought I'd try this mount out. And probably by more luck than judgment, it looks like it's going to fit in there nicely. So we're going to have a look at this first, then we'll look at these little adapters, we'll get it fitted up. Then we're going to go up the farm and hopefully I'll show you on the film what this 20 MOA rail will do for us. Right, this is definitely not going to be one of them sad act unboxing jobs, but anyway, it comes in a box. Obviously this is the mount itself. Now it looks like it's particularly well made, it's well machined. Whether or not it started out as a billet, it's hard to tell. It looks like it may be partially extruded and then machined after that. There's quite a lot of sort of post machining processes on here to remove as much weight as physically possible. The fixings look pretty stout as well. They're actually M4 threads and they've got what appears to be a T25 Torx head on there, so they're pretty burly. Comes with an Allen key as well, obviously a Torx key if you like, but boys, you need to sort this out. You can't keep sending them out in a box just with that in a little bit of bubble wrap. It's been rattling around in the packaging. There's a couple of little minor marks on here. Now it's not worth it for that little mark just to get it sent back, but you need to put that in a separate bit of bubble wrap inside the packaging. You cannot just let that rattle around, that's no good. But other than that, the machining on this looks pretty good. It feels very stout. It looks pretty well machined. So it's interesting, we've got all of the torque values on here in inch pounds, not normally what you'd use in the UK, but you can see here that we've got the 20 MOA and then we've got the little picture of the inclination. So this is going to be the back of the rifle this end, this is the front of the rifle, and the scope's going to be dropping down at 20 minutes of angle. What I'm going to do now is quickly pop it onto an FTP breech block and show you with my little digi level what 20 MOA looks like, because it's not a lot, but that's enough inclination there to drop it down at my range at the farm, just under 25 yards. That will give us basically the best part of 6mm dots of drop on the scope. So let me get this quickly set up and I'll show you what 20 MOA actually looks like in the real world. Okay, so I've got the mount now onto an FTP breech block. You can see that the underside of the breech block and the scope rails are parallel with each other. So we level this up on the bench. Zeros, let's just give that a quick check. Not incredibly accurate, but oh no, it did say 0.3 of a degree. Will it still work? There you go. Okay, that's a bit of luck. So although we dropped it, 0.3 of a degree is 20 minutes of angle, which I'll be honest, you can't actually tell by eye. I had a good look at this thing in my hands. You could barely tell that there was even any inclination on there at all. But in the real world, 0.3 of a degree is 20 MOA, so we're talking very small amounts. And it also gives you a bit of an idea when you see some of these cheap scope mounts that are quite wafty, that don't fit quite right on dovetail rails and things like that, how much of a problem you can have. Because 20 MOA, that should give me now 6mm dots of drop over the top of my elevation that I didn't have to start with. So that is a very small amount. When you get these mounts that don't sit right, or if you've got one turned the wrong way on your scope rail and your scope's sitting off at an angle, you can quite rapidly see how it's easy to get bent out of shape and not be able to bring it back onto zero. So 0.3 of a degree is 20 minutes of angle. Cool, eh? Right, let's get all this all apart then. Now, I know a lot of you are going to ask, why am I not just using standard two-piece mounts, adjustable height, so I can adjust the inclination, adjust the MOA on them if I need to? Well, the long and short of it is I have this absolute hatred of adjustable mounts. Even in one-piece ones like these BKLs, I had to use these for a long time, especially with the old Yukon, the Photon. A lot of the older scopes, and particularly some of the night visions, they have quite a limited adjustment range inside of the scope. Now, sometimes that can mean that you have to start shimming things, or adjustable mounts are the way forward, but the amount of times that I've had aggro with adjustable mounts over the years, let alone trying to find some that actually fit, dovetails nicely. Because of the broad spectrum of sizes of dovetail rails, there's no industry standard, which in itself is a ball ache. It's frustrating. But when you get an adjustable mount and it sits canted, if you've got some MOA in it, so it's slightly higher at the back than the front, and they're both canted, not only does it then start twisting your scope, it can actually push it off to one side as well. So really not a good idea. So hopefully going with a picatinny adapter on there, and then using a stout one-piece picatinny mount that has the built-in inclination that I need, that should hopefully do everything I want in a much more robust sort of package. So that's the plan. Hopefully it'll all work out. I don't know if it's going to work out. You're probably going to find out as soon as I do. Once we get it up there, we'll see how it pans out. But whether or not it stays in there long term, I don't know. But certainly like the idea of it. Nice and stout. Yeah, let's see how it goes, shall we? Right, let's get these tier 1 mounts off of here. What I will do actually later on, I'm going to show you a couple of pictures I took the other day comparing the tier 1 mounts. So these are very similar to a BKL. They're a self-centering clamp. They're very similar to these. So that's a traditional BKL. These are a tier 1. Now you can't get these tier 1 mounts anymore, so I don't know whether there was some like patent infringement, no idea, but they're a similar sort of clamping arrangement to these. Now these tier 1s fit perfectly on the AirArms rails. Now they won't fit on an S200 rail very well, and they certainly won't fit on a BSA, whereas the BKL, these actually fit better on an S200 with a narrower rail. You can also splay these out to fit on a BSA with the wider rail, yet they don't actually fit on the AirArms rails that well. So I'll put some pictures up in a little bit and I'll show you, because the actual clamping surface there, the actual footprint of mount to dovetail rail is poor. So yeah, not a big fan of those on the AirArms. They work well on the S200s, which is obviously a CZ made one. They work fine on the BSAs, but typically, not that I can get an adjustable one in any case, but yeah, they don't fit nicely. Right then, we're on. That doesn't look too sad actually. Butts up quite nice. I've still got access for my load in here. It's pretty cool. I've got the extra length of the Picatinny mount behind there, so we'll leave that as it is. It looks a bit weird without a Picatinny at the front, but I've got the other section there if I want to put it on, just to make it look a bit more balanced. However, it's gone on all right. The strange thing is that the gap here between the mounts and the saddles over the top looks like that's where the MOA is cut into it, because both sides are even on both of these saddles. It looks as if we've got cut slightly deeper at the front here, one way or the other, so that may well be where the MOA is cut into. Kind of was expecting it to be down this end in the machining, but maybe it's actually cut in at the top here. So we'll find out, see whether my sums are any good. We'll get up the farm, and I think I've still got the original board when we set this up, so we should be able to then see whether or not we're somewhere near 6mm dots off of 0. Let's go. Right then guys, we're here. It's beautiful out. It's 11 degrees, the sun's out, the wind's swelling around a little bit, but nice conditions to be out, and it's probably the first warm day that we've had of the year, so I'm really happy to be out. Now this is the board that we had when we set up the Arken to start with. This is where we were aiming at all times, apart from when we were doing our tracking tests, which it passed really well. So we were aiming here and it was hitting low and right to start with, so we had to give it 20 clicks to bring it back to the centre line. I did 10 clicks for 1mm dot, another 10 clicks for a 2mm dot, and we were on the centre line. Then I worked it up, I just measured it on the reticle, gave it 60 clicks, and we were bang on. Now, the scope hasn't been touched since we set it up then. All we've done is change the mounts. So what we're going to do is do it the other way around now. Effectively, we're going to be aiming here, and the aim points, or the point of impact, sorry, should be up here. Now, the one big difference that we've got now, apart from that 20 MOA going into it, we've also got around an additional ½ inch of scope height from the barrel bore. So that is likely to mean that we're going to be ending up somewhere around here, around 5.5mm dots high. We should be shooting, if my sums are correct. Once we re-zero it, we're going to bring it back down to here. So this is where we're going to adjust it. We're going to come back down to this little cross here. Every click we bring it back down is bringing the scope back nearer its optical, or at least its mechanical centre, or how it was set when it came out of the box. The scaling on the scope itself, we are bringing it back to its preset value out the box. So let's do it. Right then, all we've done so far is just move the cheek piece up a little bit, just to get me there or thereabouts. So good job I've got a safe backstop, decent board there. We should be shooting high, or effectively the scope's looking low now. Alright, this is going to be interesting. I'm not a big fan of chopping and changing my scope heights. It always takes me quite a while to get reacclimatised or reaccustomed, if you like, to my aim points. Right, let's go for the one in the very middle. No flipping way. Perfect. Okay, so that at the moment then, as long as that stays there, I haven't shot this for a few days, let's just put a couple. So I'm aiming at the cross at the bottom and we're hitting right up the top. Cool, right, they're stacked next to each other. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's about 5mm dots. So that makes us, we're probably, taking into account the additional scope height then, we're only 1mm dot away from the optical centre of the scope. What I quickly need to do is undo my 0 stop, which I'll do now. The brass one first. Right. We need to go down. 2, 3, 4. What appears to be 50 clicks. Never really like making these big adjustments, but I did notice we are slightly off to the left. Sorry, we're off to the right a tiny bit. But I'm now still aiming at that bottom cross, the one in the middle that I drew a second cross on it. I've just given it 50 clicks and we should be somewhere there. Perfect. Right, give it a couple of clicks to the left. Nice, just chuck another one down there. That's how easy it is to zero up these scopes, especially when they're first focal plane and they're calibrated effectively at 10 mag at true mil dot or MOA, depending on what you prefer. You can just measure off the distance on your scope, give the appropriate amount of clicks, and stack them. That's really cool. So all I need to do now then is reset my 0 stop, reset the turrets to 0. Looking at that then, we are only 10 clicks in terms of the elevation off of the optical centre, which is, I was expecting probably, yeah, that's about right, to be honest. I thought it may be a little bit closer. However, we have got a slightly taller mount on here. So overall, I'm really happy with that. I'm going to reset this, get the GoPro off. Right, well that's turned out better than I thought. I've reset the 0 stop on here now, so we've got 25 yards 0. It will reset to that all day long. Because we've now got that 20 MOA in there, we've got ourselves another nearly 60 clicks. That takes us down to 175 clicks for 17.5mm dots of additional dialing. So that's the equivalent of holding over, if you like, 17.5mm dots, which will actually mean that I can shoot on my crosshairs out to 150 yards. That would be, well, according to Chairgun, 17.2mm dots of holdover, which is the equivalent of 8 foot. 92.6 inches, 235 centimetres of drop at 150 yards, which is ridiculous. Certainly wouldn't get a chance to do it on a day like today, but we've freed up basically the maximum amount of sort of adjustment in here. In fact, to be honest, you could actually put more. I could get away with another 20 MOA if I really wanted to for 40 in total. That would push my 0 out to 55, 60 yards, which actually is not far off of what I'd be using. If you remember last year, we were using a 66 yard 0 back then. But 20 MOA, that looks really cool. What we're going to do now, we're going to get this wrapped up. It's getting really windy, and I'm going to show you some of them other scope mounts and why it's really, really vital to get some half decent mounts and just be a bit careful when you're fitting them, because some of these cheap mounts nowadays, and even some of the expensive dovetail ones, they fit useless. They're terrible, the actual fit of them on some of the dovetails. You end up getting marred up dovetails. Hate them, really getting the ump with them. But these little eaglevision adapters are fitted on here quite nicely. I don't know how well this is going to last down the line. Hopefully it won't all fall apart and be a problem. It certainly feels very stout, it feels decent. So yeah, hopefully it all stays on there really. It looks quite clean. Not sure whether I need to put my other little picatinny rail up there just to
make it look a bit more balanced on there. But actually going forward, the Arken itself is going to be moved on to a couple of new rifles. I'm going to be building some multi-shot target rifles for the ARL PRS based stuff. The XTI is going to get probably the old Falcon back on it, because it is, the only downside to this scope is the 25-yard minimum focus. We are just inside of that here, and I have to back the magnification off to get a nice crisp clear image, which is a shame. On the Falcon it's got a 15-yard minimum focus distance, so I can use that at full mag if I wanted to. The whole idea of getting this one was to put it onto an ARL sort of PRS based target rifle, so that's where it's going to go. The Falcon's going back on here for our general messing around down in the alleyway here. So yeah, quite exciting. A couple of new rifles on the way in the next couple of weeks. Quite a bit to do. Sun's out. Nice. I'll see you back at home.
Right, that was nice to be out. It's lovely and warm out there. Hopefully the weather's going to start perking up a little bit. It's still super windy, but the minute we start getting a few days where it isn't blowing a gale, we're going to get out and start pushing this a little bit further out, hopefully. I still want to get a couple of sub-MOA groups at 100 yards. That will certainly be a great one. The new rifles aren't too far away, but before I bore you entirely, if I can offer you a little bit of advice, guys, the best thing that I can suggest, looking at the way that the dovetail mounts we've got nowadays, if you come across any tier ones, they'll be fine. The March ones will be expensive, but they're also really good. They're well made. There's a few others that are pretty good. If you get a chance to try any mounts, or at least get on the forums, get down your club, see if you can borrow a set before spending your money, because some of the dovetail mounts nowadays, some of the older industry standard brands, they just do not fit all of the dovetails particularly well. And because of the variation in sizes, we've got a narrower rail on an S200, a mid-size rail on sort of your FTPs and XTIs, wider rail on the old BSAs. Actually, how many of you remember that rifle from about 15 years ago? Maybe we'll recommission that at some point in the future, not as a bullpup mind, however. Yes, that is an EV2 barrel on a BSA Ultra. That was one of my old comp guns from about 15 odd years ago, but it's been sat in the workshop for a while, just used as a dummy bit of kit. Anyway, even if you're thinking about the old eaglevision clip-in adapters, now these work very well, but I've found with all of these, they're best left loose, and then you use your picatinny mount to actually apply the clamping force. If you do the screws up too tight on the sides, they tend to bow a little bit, and your mounts might sit squiffy. They certainly sit a lot better when you just use the mounts to pinch them up. They sit a lot flatter. And in their instructions, actually, they also recommend either trying it with the side screws or just using the mount to clamp it up. And like I have here, that actual clipping adapter is only held on with the torque from the mount itself. So I'm really happy. I've released all of the inbuilt adjustment range now on the Arken here. Going forward, it's definitely going to be useful having that ability to dial out as far as that. The simple fact is that once I start looking at some of the ARL type disciplines, I like to use around 20 times magnification, and at 20 mag I can't see past 8 mil dots at the bottom of my reticle. It's basically off the bottom of the image that I see. So having the ability to dial out to 150 now, so well within the distances that we'd be competing in, almost on the optical centre, I'm going to have the best optical clarity available to me, and I can either dial or hold over at the shorter ranges. So overall, works out really well. Just be careful, guys, when you start buying these mounts. Like I say, they don't all fit every rifle, and you know what they say about universal stuff, it basically doesn't fit anything properly. So if you get the option to convert your rails, your dovetail rails, to some sort of picatinny setup and find a good quality picatinny mount, I would certainly go for it. It'll open up a whole new world of mounts, be it ones that are primarily designed for firearms, whatever, and even down to the most basic of mounts. These are West Hunter cheapies. I got those for testing and setting stuff up in the workshop, and considering they were 20 quid off of Amazon, the basic West Hunters there, you can get them next day. The fit on those is fantastic. It's far better than even a basic or to mid-range dovetail mount now, unless you get lucky and it happens to fit your rail particularly well. So yeah, I'm pretty much done with dovetails. Now I've converted over to Picatinny, I've got so many more mounts available to me. So that'll do it for this one, guys. Hopefully I haven't bored you to tears. I will see you in the next one.